Hello and welcome back to Thoughtbot's AI in Focus. I'm your host, Chad Pytel, and I'm flying solo today, but that's okay. We've made significant progress in the last couple of streams creating our new product coming out of a rapid design sprint. So if you haven't been watching those streams, I encourage you to go back and see the whole process. But to give a recap, we have been rapidly running product design sprint and then rapidly building out a functional prototype. And I'm going to share my screen of where we're currently at with this prototype, where it's a podcast and audio and video show directory. We now have where people can come on and find things that they like. Discovery in podcasts and shows, particularly in certain industries, is actually really difficult. There isn't a lot of focused directories. And so this site here allows creators to come on, list their shows, create profiles for themselves. So what we're on here now is a Discover page where it shows featured shows, featured creators, things that might be trending this week. Because you liked one show, it shows you similar shows and some hidden gems, quality shows that might have missed. On our shows page, we have more of a sort of browsable database of the different shows by tag, by type, and then creators. And we can click on creators. We can go to a creator profile. Creators have tags that indicate them, their social links, support on Patreon button, and a listing of their shows and the individual episodes of their shows. We can click on an individual show. AI in Focus, look at that. And it'll take to watch the show on YouTube, to listen to it if it's an audio podcast, and the individual episodes as well. Individual episodes have their pages now, and individual episodes have tags. You might notice that the tags are two different colors. The purple tags are genre tags, and the blue tags are mood tags. So how did we get to where we are today from where we were coming out of the sprint. So out of the sprint, we had refined what the product was going to be and created some really quick static wireframes. But we then, on the first time we came to the stream with this product, we created our Claude MD from scratch, using the information from the sprint and the features that we expect it to have, as well as Thoughtbot's Claude MD template, and which is a pull request on our guides repo, as well as some instructions for how we are going to approach testing. That's what we're going to focus on today as we move from more of the UI being prototyped out. So a lot of the almost everything that you see here is just static on the ERB files. We do have a shows model. That's how these shows are actually powered. So there is a shows model, but all that it has now is a title. So we'll go over to the code and we'll see that. So what I'll say is that we're going to be able to, in a test-driven development way, rapidly build out the rest of this application, assisted by Claude Code. If we last week on the stream, we made a big push because we had Moses on as a designer of this application, a big push on building out the UI. And we didn't do any Rails implementation, backend implementation, or we didn't do more than was necessary. In a little bit more of a real world off-stream scenario, I would be working more in vertical slices of functionality. So we've built out a significant part of what the UI is going to look like for lots of different features, because we wanted to push that forward on the stream last week. But I would encourage people to work in a little bit more vertical slices. That's going to make it easier to keep control of the application as you work on it and rapidly build it out. And it's also going to allow you to see a little bit more progress, because we're going to get to a point once we start implementing where it's not quite clear what's a placeholder and what is a real already built functionality. So let's review going over our Claude MD file. These are a good set of instructions that we found for doing test-driven development with Claude Code. So the basic instruction of using RSpec for the testing framework, using factories, use shoulda matchers for assertions. In tests, avoid lets and before, avoid mystery guess, do test setup within each test. Verify new code by running test files using bundle exec RSpec. Those are just giving the command. You can run a specific test by appending that line number. And then key point, work in small iterative TDD cycles following the red-green refactor approach with an actual link to that file, to that article, and then the instruction, go read this now. So when we go over to Claude Code, we're going to be able to tell Claude Code to, so we're going to move from rapidly prototyping out the UI of this Rails app, writing minimal Rails code, to fully implementing the features. So what I'm actually doing here is giving it context of what we're going to be doing, and then I'm going to say, read the Claude MD file. Excuse me. So that's giving it all the context. It's providing a summary here, but you can see the workflow is write failing tests, wait for my review, then and commit. Implement the smallest change to make test green, and repeat. Okay, so let's quick overview. Like I said before, we only have a show model. So if we go to the show model, all it has is a title. It validates the presence of title. If we go over to the show spec, there's that minimal spec for that. And there's also a shows a very pretty straightforward system spec, uses Capybara to do the full integration of when these shows exist. There's a shows path that lists them. We can see their titles, and we can create a new show at shows new. So we have been rapidly building out our spec, our UI, without updating this spec. So so we can tell Claude to run the specs. Right now we're it's going to be checking with us. I'm going to choose always allow because that's a non-destructive action. And so I want it to be able to run the specs whenever it needs to. By running the specs in the Claude code terminal, then Claude is able to see the failures and potentially fix them. So we have I'm just reading what is saying. I want to run the spec here. Oh, I'm covering the specs. Let me move myself. So yeah, what's happening is we have an accessibility gem installed here. So it's detecting some accessibility problems, which I wasn't expecting. So that's good to know. And it's masking the actual failure that I was expecting because it's not even getting to it. So what it's saying is the color contrast issue, the filter tag active button has insufficient contrast. Font size. And pages need a level 1 heading. Okay, so let's fix these because it's going to be a blocker for us if we do it. Fix the accessibility violations. And I know I should have added this as an instruction to the Claude MD file, but use existing color variables whenever possible. And I'm just referencing the variables file rather than introducing new colors. If we need to introduce a new color, add a variable for it rather than using the color directly. So we're just getting started in the code base with a fresh Claude session. So it's getting the lay of the land in terms of the directory structure for the CSS files now. So it's saying that the current contrast ratio, but need 4.5 to 1, I'll use the darker accent color. So we already have a variable which will work for that. I'm going to tell it to allow. I'm going to tell it to allow this as well because it already did the visually hidden class, which is a class that we have available. I was going to ask it to do it if it didn't do it already. So that's great that it already did it. Oh, perhaps the utility class exists but uses a different name. I actually forget what it is, but I'll allow that. So we have an H1 and an H3 on this page. So it's going to fix that. So I'm just checking. Yeah, so this footer, it's re-nesting the headers so that we don't go from that. I think this is all okay, so I'm going to allow. Again, this was a failure that I wasn't expecting, but the accessibility failures that you're seeing come from a gem called Capybara accessibility audit. And anytime a page is navigated to by Capybara, it runs a set of accessibility checks on the page. So while I was talking, you can see it ran the specs and the accessibility error was fixed. We're now seeing the error that I originally expected because we only told Claude to fix the accessibility error. It didn't fix that spec, which is what I would expect because we're really trying to keep the reins on Claude. We've instructed it to basically only do what we tell it and do one step at a time. So the remaining test failure is a functional issue, missing new show button, not an accessibility violation. I'm going to, commit and then fix that failure. Okay, so you can see that Claude made a commit with a message that instructed what we did. Okay, so I'm going to say let's fix this, but actually we don't want to link the new show button now. Let's fix this by changing the spec to go directly to the new show page. Okay, we're going to say allow. So it's just changing the new show path. Now, we talked about this on a previous stream. Like these things are extremely sort of straightforward changes. Why are we having Claude do them? And the reason why is because by having Claude do them, then Claude picks up on the way we're approaching things. And as we work, it's going to get better and better at that. So it found another accessibility violation from the flashes. So the most appropriate landmark for flash meshes is a role status or to use the aside element. Let me update it. I'm going to reject this and just use the status role. Don't change to an aside. So when we were building out the UI, we went into always allow mode and we did those things. Now that we're moving into test-driven development, implementation of actual functionality, I'm much less likely to move into always allow mode outside of certain commands. And again, this is so that I can maintain control and ownership over the code that's being written, and really understand at each step of the way what's happening. So here we've got, okay, let's commit that and remove the pending specs. The reason why I'm removing the pending specs is that they got put there accidentally when I wasn't clear with Claude last week about not implementing Rails features. So it dropped those files there. I'm just going to clean them up to clean them up so that we don't have them stragglers hanging around. Okay, good. So we've got a green test week. There's only 5 tests in it, but that's expected because we haven't done a lot. So you can see Claude has now started to automatically commit once we have passing specs, and that so that comes from this other section of the Claude MD file that I didn't read off before. So it is when working on a new feature or bug fix, you always write a failing test or series of tests first, then wait for me to review them. Then when I've committed those tests, you add the implementation resolve or one more. If your changes don't make at least one or more tests go green, keep working until they do, but always try to make the smallest change to make. I actually thought that it said, and then you can commit when everything's green. Well, I just misspoke, but that's okay. Okay, so let's go back over to our application and decide what we're going to implement first. And I think the thing that I want to implement first, since we already have a show model, we already have show specs, then adding these additional attributes to shows so that they get more and more of this functionality real around shows is a great place to start. If you're not sure, you could ask Claude where it thinks to start. Sorry, Miguel asks, why Z instead of Claude code in the terminal? I fear there are nice commands like context, compact, etc. Miguel, it's a good question. I've been trying out Z the last few months, and sort of since it's a new thing, I am making an attempt to really use it extensively. You can use those commands, some of the slash commands from Claude directly in here, but not the other ones. But it like compact is there. Context you add by using the @ symbol. And so all of those functionality is there through Zed as far as I know. So, but that's why I'm forcing myself to use the new editor as much as possible to try it out. Thanks for asking. What are we building? We're building a podcast directory. So let's get started. Okay, so there are actually two ways of going about this. The first would be to ask Claude to look at what's not implemented yet for shows and to begin to implement them. That would actually work, but I think for the purposes of this, I'm going to be a little bit more sort of directed and intentional. So let's implement the placeholder. Let's replace the placeholder description of a show with an implemented version. So again, following TDD, it did it on its own from that Claude MD instruction. Following TDD, I'll write a failing test first. Let me check to see if there are existing show specs. There are. It's now reading the show model. So following TDD principles, I'll add the test first. Validate presence of description. Good. So now it's automatically running the test. It's getting the failure that it expects. The test is failing as expected because the description attribute doesn't exist yet. Now I'll commit this failing test and wait for your review before implementing. So yeah, this is the flow that we expect. It's the one that we went over with Lewis several weeks ago for this flow. The idea is we're saving at every step of the way in Git, but then we're waiting to move forward. I'm waiting for your review. Yep. So that's good. So while that's going, and we talked about this with Lewis as well, while it's doing things, that's when you can, as a developer, look ahead to the next thing that you want to do. And so, for example, the next thing that we want to do, if we go into a show, shows have URLs for where they can be watched and listened to, a Patreon URL, these social links here, a creator, and episodes. So they also have this large image as well. So we can be thinking about the steps that we want to go through to add these things. And I'm just looking at the code and saying, yeah, that looks good. So the Claude MD file includes instructions that we're going to use factory. So it automatically realized it needed to update the factory. Went and go find it. So this is this adding this description field. It's a straightforward text field. This is a good place to start in terms of demonstrating the process. But it's a pretty simple change. So it's adding the description field to the form. So one of the things that I'm wondering about as I see what it's doing is migrating the existing shows with this required description. And then I realized I scrolled up and was looking, and it didn't add it as not nullable. So that's not an issue. The existing shows can. So it's modifying the spec. It's automatically running them to make sure that it's all passing now. And so it automatically committed. It's telling me everything that it did. And so that's great. So now if we go over to our app and actually, I thought that I had seen it replacing the placeholder text. Okay. So, okay. Now let's replace the placeholder. Show descriptions everywhere with the actual description attribute. I feel like, and in this case, I'm just going to do it because I want to keep moving forward. I'm going to say, make sure to add specs, add a failing spec for each place we're doing first. I believe that it probably would have done that anyway, but I just didn't feel like risking it. I want to keep us moving forward. And that's okay. So after we do the placeholder, I think what we'll do, I'm sorry, after we do the description of shows, I think what we'll do is the images. I think that it will be interesting. That's a little bit more complicated of a feature, and that'll be good to dive into. So shows have a large image, a large featured image, and a banner image, and the smaller card image. Okay, good. So you see it modified the specs. It's running them to make sure that they fail. They fail. Okay, committed the test following TDD. I'm now waiting for your review before proceeding with the implementation. So I already looked at the file as it went by, so I'm happy with that. When we're generating more code, that's stop there is really good to have it stop so that we can review all the code before proceeding. It's harder to just watch it as it goes by. And that's probably what we'll do when we see the image stuff. Okay, so it's updating each of the places where the description is. And now it's running the specs. And they all passed. So with all 8 sticks passing, it's committing the change. Okay. So now if we go back over to the app and we refresh, we see that description is not there. So I have no way to, if there's no edit page for this, which is expected. We didn't create one. If we go to the show's new page, we now have title and description. But let's introduce that edit so we can add descriptions. We can add descriptions. We don't need to link to the edit page right now. My thinking with this is we're eventually going to have users and admins will be able to edit the shows, but we don't want to link that anywhere right now. That's what I'm thinking. So what I did there was I looked at the spec that it was writing. Sorry, I realized I needed to be talking out loud. Saw that it's using the factory, that it's using a factory, that it's not linking it anywhere, that it looked correct to me. And so I just wanted to make sure. Okay, so again, it's following TDD. So before adding the route, it wanted to show that that failed. It now commits that. And it explains the test fails because edit show path doesn't exist. Following TDD, I'm waiting for a review. I've already reviewed it as it was going by. Okay, so it's adding the route now, and then it's adding the controller action. I'm going to review it here. It's finding the show to edit. Update looks good. Okay, looks good. Cool. Okay, so now if we go back over to here, we can, oops, if we type it correctly, we can go over to edit a show. This is the show you're watching right now. So we now have on this page, there it is. This is the show you're watching right now. So let's add the So that's looking good. So now let's add the banner image. I'm actually going to say let's implement. Yeah, while that runs, we get the comment, Claude doesn't TDD by default, and that's a real shame. But with our instructions in this Claude MD file, we're getting good results, and that's part of why we wanted to share this today. And this is, and that PR on our guides as well. So you can go to github.com/thoughtbot/guides to be able to see this. So it's adding a validation for should the presence of a validation of a banner image. So it displays the banner image on the show page. Okay, so now look at this. What it's doing is it is adding a banner image URL. So at this point, I'm going to reject that, and I'm going to say, let's add an actual file attachment for the image. Okay, so as an experienced developer, what I'm doing then is immediately saying, let's use active storage for file attachments. Great. It's switching the spec to have one attached. Great. So what I'm doing here is making sure that it's taking the approach that I want it to take. There's times where Claude might not use the Rails feature that I'm expecting it to use or something like that. Okay. So it added the failing specs. Now we're going to have it proceed with implementation. So it's checking whether active storage is installed. It was not installed. So it is doing that to generate the tables. It automatically ran the migrations. Okay. Okay, so it's adding the with the factory, it's attaching that. So this is a good example of how what it's doing there is with fake image data. I'm going to reject that instead of using fake image data. Introduce a fixture image and use that. Wow. Okay, so it is using convert to generate a 1200 by 400 purple image as the fixture file. It did that automatically. So that's interesting. Okay, so I think that there's a isn't there a file fixture test helper? Yeah, so So we were just looking at that, and we can call .read on it. So I'm going to accept this because I'm not quite sure it's right, but I want to run the specs and see. Okay, so I'm going to allow. So I don't. So it's doing this now. I'm now update the show page. Okay, yeah. So I want to make sure we don't delete the images from Unsplash because I want to be able to use them. So that's. Oh, I see. Okay, so it's saying if it's attached, then use that. Otherwise, use our placeholder. I'm going to keep that because otherwise, the site's going to be without a bunch of images until we replace them. So I'm going to keep that. Okay, so that dot open did work apparently. But this generated a little bit more code, so it's going to stop before moving on, or we're going to stop before moving on. And I just want to verify that. I'm just going to look where it's creating a factory and run that spec. Yeah, for myself, making sure that looking at this shows factory here. Okay. Cool. So now if we go over to the app, we still have the placeholders. But if we go into this thing, we can actually we have a banner image here. I was hoping I could quickly grab. Oh, here it is. So if we go to the edit page for this, well, while we're here, we might as well. Oh, that's an out of date description. We got to fix that. Cool. So there is the show with the attached image as the header. Nice. And if we go to our shows page. Okay, so it didn't do it there, so let's do the same thing. Okay, now place the large image on featured show cards with the banner image. Let me start by writing a failing test. We love to see it. That's what we love to see. Okay, featured show, and what the spec is that it has a source of our fixture image, which is perfect. So it expected the source of test image there. It's not there. Okay, and it's going with the conditional again, which I'm happy with so that we don't completely lose all the images on the site to start right now. Great. Okay. Let's do the same thing, but with the smaller show card image. No, so that actually, it got confused by my instruction. So I said, let's do the same thing, but with the smaller show card image. And the last thing we did was replace the card image with the banner image. And so you can see it's saying, I'll replace the placeholder image on regular show cards with the banner image. And that's not what we want to do. So I'm going to reject that change. No, let's introduce a new, smaller attached image for the show cards. Thumbnail image, I think, is a good name for that. So we'll allow. So things I'm going to be watching for as it does this is it using the same fixture method that we had already corrected it on? It really should pick up those patterns like that. So I'm just watching as it goes by to make sure that that's the case. Cool, there it is, all set. So it's adding it to the form now. Okay. Okay, that's good. So it's doing the same. It's using the thumbnail image on the cards. Okay, so it's going to commit. While it commits, we'll go over. Oops. See, there we have our bike shed card with the banner image now. That's great. It hasn't replaced it on that card. Oh, because we haven't uploaded a thumbnail image. I confused myself for a second and jumped ahead. So for ease, we'll just put it as the same thing, but there we go. We have it. Nice. Okay, so we're all committed. We've got this functionality. If anyone has any ideas of what you'd like to see implemented next, I'm all open to suggestions. I think what I'll probably do next is introduce. Let's do something else. Let's do introducing creators. So I'm just at this point saying let's introduce the implementation of creators because I know that it's got the UI to guide it, but I also, if you remember, Claude MD file has instructions. So a creator may represent an individual person. A creator can have multiple shows. A creator has a profile image, name, and description. The site will have a page for each creator where a user can see all their shows. So each episode will have cast members. Each cast member optionally has who they're playing in that episode. So I should be able to just say something like this and have it start to TDD. Yeah. And it's just recapping that from there. So that's great. So it checked to see whether there's a database yet or a table yet. There isn't, so it's checking to see whether there's a model. No. Okay, so there's a placeholder controller, but no model yet. Let me start by writing a failing test. Following TDD, I'll create the spec first. So it's adding each of these attributes at once, all at once, I mean. And I just want to make sure we're not doing too much at once. I'm looking at this, thinking through what it's going to do. Since this isn't introducing like wildly new functionality, I think I'm okay with this. Name, description, and the image is called profile image. I think that's okay. And we do start to move into, as long as I am sure that we're not doing too much at once, I do want to move quickly. So gaining that confidence understanding what code is going to be generated and then moving as quickly as possible. I do want to do that. That's why part of why I'm doing this is not to just use AI, this tool for the sake of using this tool, but to go faster than I would be able to do on my own. So I already reviewed the tests, so I'm gonna. Okay, so it's generating the model. It realized the generator overwrote the spec file and it automatically restored it from Git. That's nice. So I'm just looking at the migration there. That looks good. Has one attached image, profile image, shows, name, description. And that all matches the spec file that was already written. So it's doing the so it created a migration and then automatically ran it to add creator ID to shows. So it's allowing null for shows. I think that's an okay approach for right now because I don't want to completely block on that. And that's what we would do if we needed to do a data migration as we're introducing this. So I'm cool with that as the approach. As it's doing this, I'm realizing it never ran the specs in between that implementation. So that's something to keep an eye out for. Given our instructions, it's usually pretty good at that, but okay, so now it's adding a creator factory, setting up that. I'm going to reject this and use a sequence so that creator names from the factory are unique. Use a number sequence. Okay, so now we're getting creator with a number. That way we'll be able to distinguish them. Okay, so we've introduced that stuff now. Let's replace all the placeholder stuff for creators with the actual versions. So I just said, let's replace all the placeholder stuff for creators and the views with the actual versions. Be sure to write failing test specs first. So list of creators. So it's creating 2 creators. It's then going to the creators index. And it's also making sure that both of them have the test profile picture. And then it goes to the show page. Similar thing. It sets them up as this one as having 2 shows and that they're there. I'm not sure how I feel about the CSS selector for the within created shows. Use within and a class name. We can just check the content of the page without using within. Yeah, the biggest issue I've noticed with Vibe, Ahmad says, the biggest issue I've noticed with Vibe coding with Claude is code duplication plus some silly stuff. For example, it coded an API call into my method for caching. You really got to watch out for that. Some amount of duplication is okay, particularly if you're moving quickly, I think. But the other thing I would call out is I don't consider what I'm doing here vibe coding because I'm doing test driven development. I'm doing it very intentionally, and I'm going step by step each of the way to maintain ownership over the code as if I had written it. It might be a subtle distinction, but I think vibe coding in my mind is more as if I just said, let it generate everything to implement all at once for significant features. Maybe I'm splitting hairs. I don't know. These are failing as expected. Let's see what the failure is. Okay, it's all just hard coded still, so it's not doing it. It's also found. Okay, so that's good. Proceed and make the creator name the H1. Okay, that looks good to me for the initial implementation of the controllers. Yeah, so Ahmad says, well, in that case, I believe vibe coding doesn't work at all. Yeah. I think if you're building a throwaway prototype, then vibe coding that is vibe coding in that way is somewhat viable. But if you change to working this way, we are essentially able to rapidly prototype, but we're actually not making a prototype. We're making real production code that is a real application that can go to production. And I think that that's, you might have a speed up go slightly faster by doing large amounts of vibe coding. Um, but if your goal is to actually launch a product, um, and you know that that's going to happen because the product has been validated, this is a even faster leap in terms of productivity and how quickly you're ultimately going to move. Okay, that all looks good. And now it's updating the show section to display the actual shows for this creator. That's okay because it already wrote a failing spec to see whether the shows were there or not. And I'm just double checking to make sure it's using the same markup. It is. I'm making a mental note that the view all shows link is removed. Actually, I'm not gonna. I'm gonna reject this and say don't remove the view all shows link. Okay, so now it's doing the show card with the show. That's interesting. I assume it's going to. Okay, I'm going to accept this, assuming that it's going to. Oh, you know, we already have a show card partial. So it's actually removing the placeholder there, which is perfect. Okay, couldn't find creator with ID show. Couldn't find creator with ID index. These are old placeholder request specs that are incorrect. Let me delete them since we have proper specs now. That was one of the other ones that got dropped. I didn't realize. You remember we deleted the old creator specs, but we didn't. It must have missed that one. Sweet. So if we go over to the app now, refresh this page, it's no longer going to load because there's not any creators. So if we go to show, so I'm pretty sure that there's no way to create creators now. Okay, great. Let's introduce creator. So in this case, I'm going to say creation, editing, and editing. And I'm going to do that because I have the sense that I can maintain control of that. It's not going to be too much code that I can't understand. Yes, Antonio, sorry, is suggesting something that is going to happen on a future stream. So yes, but Antonio says I've been experimenting with running Copilot in multiple Copilot instances by cloning the repo, creating separate databases, opening each clone. It's a lot of stuff. But that is the potential here, is that we can basically have multiple things happening at once, and we can do TDD if we're working in different branches. So we're gonna do this on a future stream with some implementation. We're gonna see what that's like where we can do it, and we're gonna use a few different tools for doing it. Because as Antonio pointed out, in order to do it locally by default, you've got to have multiple checkouts of the code, multiple databases, all that kind of thing. So we're going to look into how we can avoid having to do that. Okay, creates a new creator, edits a creator. It's using the factory. I'm happy with these specs, so we'll continue. I think that I'm not exactly sure when we'll do that parallel programming with AI agents exploration, but if it's not before the end of the year, it'll be early next year. Okay, we can proceed. I already looked at the failing spec. So one of the things that I'm doing here is I'm still in the mode where I'm rejecting or allowing every change. If you remember the past stream and when we had Lewis on and we were doing this flow, Lewis had a little bit of a different workflow, and that was going into allow mode, but then using get diff to review all the changes at every step of the way, and then provide corrections on the whole. That's totally a reasonable way of doing it as well. Okay. Name, description, profile image. Perfect. Oh, I forgot that it was waiting for me. Okay, great. It's going to commit that. So let's go over. And so we have no creators. So we'll create a creator thoughtbot. I have it here somewhere. Look at that. It's coming together now. Creators also have a banner image. So, and there are no shows. Okay. So yeah, important. It didn't add the ability to link shows. So if we go to the edit screen, there's no way to link shows. So I think we can do that. Okay, let's add the ability to add and edit shows to creators from the creators new and edit. So associate shows with a creator when creating, associate updates show associations when editing. So I'm going to reject this. I'm going to say add the specs to the existing system specs rather than introducing no. I mean, add the spec. Add the assertions to existing specs, existing scenarios, rather than introducing new ones. I guess I needed some more precise language there. Okay, so now this is what I expect. Okay, so it's going with check boxes for the shows. That's not at all scalable, but it'll work for now. So it attempted to run just the spec, system creator spec, couldn't load the file. Okay. Good. So those are the failures that we would expect. So, and the specs look good. So eventually we might want to combine the contents of both of these forms into a partial. But I don't know that they're not going to diverge now. So I wouldn't, I'll wait until we're living with this a little bit longer to see whether they diverge. Okay, so now if we go over to our edit page, this doesn't look right, but we're not going to keep it this way, so that's okay. But let's add all these shows to Thoughtbot, update the creator. It didn't work, I don't think. So when faced with something that didn't work that we're expecting to work, I want to go to the spec. So what we're doing is editing a show. Sorry, what we're doing is editing a creator. So I'm going to run the spec. Make sure that passes. I'm just going to do one again just to make sure that I didn't mess something up. Oh, I see what's happening. The profile image, I think it's failing validation on the profile image. There we go. So we need to fix that. But that show now shows up. Let's go back. Okay. So when I go to edit a show, we have a bug. When I go to edit a show, creator, the creator's profile image isn't maintained on the form, and so the saving the creator fails because validation fails. The profile image validation is failing because active storage attachments aren't required by default, but the creator model requires a profile image. Let me check the validation and write a failing spec. So first of all, I need to think about whether this is correct or not, but this is exactly what I wanted to happen in terms of the flow, which is I said there was a bug, and the first thing it does is it writes a failing spec for the bug. So what is our spec doing? It creates a creator, visits the creator's path, only changing the name. And so why I'm a little skeptical, because this isn't different than what this is doing. But I'm going to allow this, write a spec that should fail if this bug exists. So yeah, Claude is going to see, oh, we expected this to fail. It didn't. So it says all tests are passing. It appears the profile image is being preserved correctly when editing a creator. So it's saying, are you seeing an error message when you save? What validation is failing specifically? Is this happening with creators created through the factory or through the web interface? So let's go back over and let's replicate this problem again. And I'm not seeing any validation errors, but we also don't necessarily have styles for failures or anything like that. Ahmad, yeah, writing tests that are supposed to fail is is by definition the first step of test-driven development. Writing the spec that you expect to fail. It's especially useful when identifying or fixing bugs. Writing a test that's supposed to fail before making the fix it validates that the bug exists, but then also prevents against future regressions, because if the fix goes away or the bug is reintroduced, that specific failure is going to crop up again. So it is a useful practice. Yeah, thanks for the question. Okay, so let's go back over to here and we're going to say it's happening with creators created through the web interface. I don't see any validation error message in the UI. When you create a creator through the web interface without uploading a profile image, it gets created without one, but our factory always attaches a profile image. Let me write a test that reproduces the issue. I actually don't think that this is the issue, either because Thoughtbot already has an image. But I think this spec will be useful to determining the root of the problem. Okay, so I'm not gonna try this. I see the issue. The edit form doesn't display validation errors. If there's a validation failure, the user won't. Okay, so because we're coming up on time, I'm going to accept this code that it's writing here, so that we can see whether the failure exists. But I wouldn't have accepted this code as it was written. And then I'm going to go over here and so we're not seeing the validation errors. If we remove, okay. So let's see if okay, so actually, I think we may have gone down the wrong path before, because what's happening is not, I just replicated it again by probably, and that didn't work. So that's not what's happening. So reject. Okay. Okay. So that's not actually the problem. Let's revert the specs we added. to originally try to pinpoint the problem. Let's revert. Okay. Well, we're back to passing. We've got our creators here. We've got images, profiles, the relationship to shows. We've made pretty good progress today. So thank you all for watching. We will be off next week, and we'll be returning in the new year. We'll be continuing building out this application, but we also have new guests joining. So we're really excited. And as I teased earlier, we're going to do the multi-agent, developing multiple features at once. Thank you very much for watching. Thanks for tuning in, and see you next year.